Welcome to the Gita in Action podcast. My name's Radha, and I'm here with a family of seekers. We're reading through the Bhagavad Gita, this ancient wisdom text. We're reading through the Gita verse by verse and diving deep into its meaning and relevance in our lives. And it's Monday, and we all made it here. So it's a good start to the week for us. Today we will be starting in chapter 10, and we'll be starting with text 3. So, chapter 10, text 3. And when you're ready, Stella, could you say the prayers for us?
Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Svavadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'll share my screen. 10:3 is where we are starting. This is 10:2. Just move over one. And when you're ready, Stella, could you read that for us?
Okay, Yomamajam Anidam Cha Veti Loka Maheshwaram Asamudasa Martesyu Sarva Papai Paramuchyate. He who knows me as the unborn, as the beginningless, as the supreme Lord of all the worlds, he only, undiluted among men, is freed from all sins.
Thank you. Okay, so the first thing that Krishna establishes here is that he is beyond time. Krishna is beyond time. So that means no beginning, no end, which is kind of hard for us to conceive of, but this is a reality. Not our reality, but a reality. And to some extent, it's our reality. One can say the soul is eternal, that the Atma doesn't have a beginning or an end either. So what's so special about Krishna? And the difference here is that Krishna is not just beyond time, but he's the controller of time and of all living beings. He's the controller of time and all living beings. So when someone truly understands this, not just intellectually, but really existentially, Krishna says that person becomes undiluted. So in other words, they're no longer confused about reality. Because as we all know, we're all born here, and as soon as we're born, we have like a death sentence hanging over our heads. We like to try to act like it's not real or it's not coming, but it is for all of us. The body is temporary and will end. We know that. And yet Krishna says something radical here. He says, "One who knows me becomes freed from all sins. So how does this work? How does just knowing God purify someone? And the acharyas explain that impurity, it doesn't only mean sinful action. At a deeper level, impurity means misdirected desire. Misdirected desire. Because the reality is, because we're overly identified with our temporary bodies as ourselves, right? Most of our desires are at that level, are aimed at temporary worldly objects. And even when those desires aren't necessarily like bad or immoral, they still bind us because what they do, they keep us absorbed in something that's temporary. So this is where we just have to be a little bit careful and knowledgeable. We have to know this. We have to know the tendency for us to over-identify with our body and to therefore over-identify with the temporary world around us, which it's again, it's natural. We're going to be engaged in the world around us, but we don't want to be so engaged in the world around us that we forget the the reality. you know. And the reality is that we're actually servants of God, and we're really only here to even carry out that role, right? To really just to serve God, to connect with God, right? So that we can ultimately go back to God. And that's what this verse is telling us. When we come to know Krishna, something shifts. Our hearts begin to be attracted to him. And this attraction, when we're attracted to Krishna, this is the supremely pure desire. This is supremely pure desire. And as that attraction grows, quote unquote, sinful reactions naturally just fall away. Not because we're forcefully like suppressing it or making it so, but because our center of gravity has changed. And this is why Krishna consciousness is so powerful. Just knowing about Krishna is purifying, meaning it will redirect your desires to something higher, something eternal. Just hearing about Krishna is purifying. That's what this word means, purifying. It's redirecting our desires. I just got a question yesterday from a student. It was a really wonderful question. He said, it's really hard to be a householder, because part of my responsibilities are, worrying about my finances and being responsible and this, setting up, financial security. But then I find myself just overly distressed when I lose a lot of money and then overly joyed when I gain a lot of money. And he said, what do I do? Because this is, my role and responsibility at this time in my life. And this is true. This is part of the challenge. This is like what Krishna gives us so that we can learn and so that we can ultimately turn back to him. But in the meantime, it is difficult, right? Like expect it to be difficult. We've been enamored with this material energy for lifetimes, that to expect that just because we come in and we hear these truths and we know these truths, it's just going to be easy. We have to kind of tailor that expectation because it's not. We are so conditioned. So it's not going to be easy. We're going to be pulled up and down. Right? But what we learn through the Gita, is that to the degree that we start to incorporate more of Krishna in our lives, the more we hear about Krishna, the more we chant the holy names, the more we sprinkle these things into our lives, the more we will become attracted to Krishna. And the more that we're attracted to Krishna, our God-shaped hole in our heart starts to fill, and our attachment for all of those other things where we're ultimately seeking security, maybe in our money or our jobs or whatever, wherever we're seeking our security, that will start to shift also. But this is a process. And just because it takes time, don't lose faith in the process because it will purify you. Hearing about Krishna, knowing about Krishna, this is purifying you. Your desires will start to become redirected. It'll be pulled from this material world to Krishna's feet, right? Krishna's lotus feet. It will to this transcendental world. And in that, we'll see ourselves becoming less enamored. Where before it's like you gain a ton of money and you're super excited, and then you lose the money and you're super bummed. It'll be like these waves will just become shorter. You'll be excited to gain money. You'll be sad to lose money. And then to where eventually it's like it's just steady because you've become so attracted to Krishna that you've taken that what you're taking shelter of in this material world is now at Krishna's feet. It is now you're taking shelter of God fully. But this will take a little time, and expect, we can see that we're making progress because we're, again, maybe our emotional highs and lows, there was like this much distance between them. And as we go through the process, as we go through bhakti, we'll see there's less distance between our highs and lows. We'll see this. The sine wave will just naturally kind of crunch. And we all start from different places, right? Some people start like this. Some people are here. Right? So we can't even necessarily compare or look around and judge, but we can feel it within ourselves that the highs and lows are becoming closer. And this is happening because we're taking more and more shelter of God. And this is what he promises us. You know? It's purifying. Your desires will be redirected. And because of that, you will be more peaceful. You'll be more content. You won't be so attached. And that's what's happening as the sine wave crunches. So let's see. That was a little bit of a tangent here. Um, okay, so let's talk about another apparent contradiction that somebody could bring up around Krishna being unborn. Right, so if he's unborn, we know that Krishna came and he was born from Devaki, right? Because Krishna appeared on this earth. That's the real thing. God appeared on this earth 5,000 years ago. He was born from Devaki. Right? And the answer is that so the question is, if he's born, then how is he unborn? Because we all see he had a mother, clearly. So the answer here is that Krishna is eternally the Supreme Lord, but for the sake of just his pastimes, his reciprocal relationships with devotees, he chooses to appear in this world in a particular way. His birth it's not like ours. It's a divine manifestation. It's not like a forced entry due to karma. It's not like a forced entry due to karma. And that's why we're here. Because our karma. Because there's things that we wanted, desires that we have in this temporary world, and there's a bag of credits that we have to spend. Things that we deserve, that we have to kind of play out. But Krishna's not bound by karma. He's not bound by his own system. No, he maintains it. He's the controller of it. He's not bound by his own system. He comes just because he decides to, just to come and reciprocate with us. Okay, I may pause here. Does anybody want to share anything?
Hey, Radha. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I just was thinking how um I don't remember when, but I remember learning more from like a Catholic background way later that sinning, like the word sin,
yeah,
I think like the whatever that word is, the origin of the words, some of the definition is actually to miss the mark, so it's not just
yeah,
about actions and like how I used to understand it feel so like terrible and guilty and wrong. It's actually like just not understanding yet.
right.
It's to miss the mark. It is the more correct, like, I don't know, real word definition. And that
Yeah,
that was really helpful. And I think it was possibly before I became aware of Krishna consciousness, but it was a marked shift of like, oh my God, I don't have to feel like a terrible anymore. Yeah. So I
yeah,
wanted to share that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. It's a beautiful point. Like a less evolved understanding is like when I'm putting myself in the center and I do this and it's good. I do this, or I do this and I'm good. I do this and I'm bad. That's like a very egocentric, kind of like narrow understanding of the word sin. But it's a natural step. That may be how you have to kind of teach it to a child because they don't have the capacity to really understand it at its deeper meaning. But as we evolve and as our consciousness evolves, we can understand the broader meaning here is that it's not about you. It's not saying you're good, you're bad, and then let's use that to separate people. And
Mm.
that is just born of an immature realization. But as we evolve and we understand this word, when we talk about sinful actions or impurities, we're really just talking about misdirected desire, misdirected desires. It's nothing about us. It doesn't mean you're good or you're bad. It just means that your desire is misdirected because you also your understanding is not quite there. Just like you said, your understanding is not quite there. But once we understand that Krishna is the controller of the world, Krishna is our supreme beloved. Right? It's the reason that we're even here is to turn back towards him. Then we naturally understand that everything we do, everything we say, everything we think, we want it to be connected to him. And then if it's not
Mm.
connected to him, then it's just not full, right? It's just a little bit broken.
For me, I found it easier to connect, like stay connected and continue, rather than take this time of like feeling like, um, you know, needing to be punished or stay disconnected for some time to like, I don't know, make it up or something. Um, it helped like me realize, I'm always connected. I'm always accepted. It's not like, oh, I made a mistake and now I am a sinner for a time frame and disconnected.
Yeah,
It's
we
not.
totally, we get tripped up by our own ego. We just and it
Yeah.
distracts us. So we get
And
we
it,
go on like detours.
and the memories as a child, as a confused child, are like, whoa. Anyway,
Yes,
yeah, thank you.
totally. And this is the next point. This is a nice point Prabhupada makes in the purport here. He explains that nothing in this material world is actually auspicious. Even though we constantly are labeling things as good, as bad, as fortunate, as unfortunate. He's saying even this kind of conception is largely imagined. He's saying true auspiciousness depends on activities performed in God consciousness, in devotion and service. And we can understand this through the dream analogy. When you're dreaming, everything feels real. A dream can be wonderful or terrible. But when you wake up, none of it actually matters. And you end up even just like forgetting it a couple hours later. So the real goal was never to have a better dream. The real goal was to wake up. The real goal was to wake up. And similarly, the purpose of life isn't to arrange a more comfortable material situation. No, it's to wake up from illusion. And that's where this definition of sometimes we hear this word Maya, and it's kind of can be kind of it kind of can have like a bad rep. But really, what it means is that anything that appears meaningful but is disconnected from Krishna, is just not valuable. And Maya means that we think it's valuable, but it's actually pulling us deeper into forgetfulness. We're actually just getting more involved in the dream. Oh, so therefore it's just not serving us. It's not serving our real goal here, the whole reason we're here. If you're in a dream and we want to wake up, but nobody wants to stay stuck in a dream forever. I think of that movie Groundhog's Day. Right? I actually really don't like that movie, by the way, but it's like forever stuck in my head. Right? Because our dreams are not a reality. We're dreaming, we want to wake up. Whether it's good or bad, we want to wake up. Okay? But Maya is the thing that we call the label that we call things that keep us there. And so similarly in this material world, things that just keep us so stuck. and infatuated with material energy, we call this word Maya, because it's just keeping us from waking up, from realizing our eternal identity and living in accordance with that. So even these things we label as good or auspicious, like wealth or success, these things can bind us more tightly to Maya, right? If they're not connected to Krishna. They can just keep us from waking up. So we have to be careful. And this is the broader definition of what it means to be, impure. So what's truly auspicious? What's truly auspicious is our connection to God. And like we just said earlier, to the extent that we can use the things of this world, our work, our relationships, our resources, in connection with God, those same things become genuinely auspicious. And this is exactly what I told this student. Where we have to start is just everything we have, our job, our relationships, our work, our finances, everything, use in connection to God. And God will purify you. Just that service. Through that service, you'll attract Krishna's mercy and you'll become purified. And it will just increase, your desire to be connected with God and your relationship with God. And soon you'll be able to take much greater, you'll be able to take a much deeper shelter of God, and you'll be less affected by the waves of material energy. And this is what Krishna consciousness is about. It's not about rejecting life. It's not, you don't have to just give, it's not about just saying, okay, well, finances are distracting me, so I'm just going to walk away from it. I'm just not going to worry about it at all. I'm just going to, what's that word? YOLO. Right? Okay, YOLO. I'm too pulled, so I'm just stepping out. No, no, no. This isn't what the Gita calls us to do at all. The Gita calls us to dovetail whatever it is that's pulling us, right? Or that we're becoming infatuated with or pulled down by, whatever it is, dovetail it in service to God. So instead of thinking in terms of good versus bad, the guiding question becomes, how can this be used in Krishna's service? So even our finances, okay, I'm recognizing my finances are making me feel really good right now. Okay, now they're making me feel really bad. Okay, instead of that, how can this be used in Krishna's service? How can this be used in Krishna's service? That's what we want to bring. What we want to bring to the forefront of our lives. That intention. We don't need to keep walking around this world seeing everything as good, bad, ugly, unpleasant, hurtful, painful, comfortable. No. How can this be used in Krishna service? That's our new, mantra. And this question itself brings about auspiciousness.
And sorry, and I've
Yeah.
also heard instead of thinking good and bad about Maya and the material world and different things, it's like which good advice is favorable to my connection to Krishna or unfavorable.
Yeah.
And it takes away the like judging and trying to put like a value of like this person's bad or this is good or this is bad. And it's just like, is this situation favorable to my connection to Krishna or unfavorable? Like,
Yes.
yeah. And that was a helpful like just change.
Yes,
More how
because
you're saying than thinking good or bad, you know?
yeah, because those words, favorable, unfavorable, it's really in reference to the journey, to the goal. When we use labels like good, bad, it becomes so egocentric. And
Hmm.
just like you said, we get distracted in it. We get caught up in it.
And like we're judging it.
Yeah, right. Right. But if it's more objective. Is this favorable or unfavorable for where I want to go? Okay, it's not helping me. Okay, then I just won't do it. Like if you're driving a car and your car has some kind of problem and you're like, okay, should I fix this? Is it going to help if I fix this? Will I be able to get where I need to go? It's like you're not going to identify with the car. You're not going to say like, oh, this is so bad. This is, and then just break down and like do nothing. That's what ends up happening to us too, because we get so overly identified with the car. But there's no need to do that because we know the car isn't us, right? The body isn't us. The mind isn't us. So we just have to see, okay, is this going to help me get to my destination or not? And if not, then let's just drop it. Or so then yeah, let's do that. Let's get that oil change. So that we can move smoothly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Thank you. Okay, so now having established that he's unborn, beyond time, the source of all, Krishna's going to move forward. And in the next verses, he's going to begin to describe his own nature and his own qualities, elaborating further on what it means to be the origin of everything. This is like kind of amazing. This is Krishna's opulence. He's the origin of everything. And this is where the chapter just really starts to unfold. So should we get into the next verses here? These are really nice ones too.
I was just going to add something
Yeah,
that I thought
please.
about was when you said that analogy of the sine wave of the highs and the lows, I kept on thinking that in addition to just coming to a place where I'm sort of even mind, even vision, which is sort of like in the middle of that sine wave, I think Krishna consciousness actually elevates it beyond that so that the
Mhm.
actual the place where I'm on an even place has a higher vibration, and so that I'm
Yes.
really riding a lasagna noodle rather than the sine wave, and it's getting a higher taste so that I'm not actually still at that place where I'm just sort of even minded in the middle of all that mess. So just wanted to add that.
Yes. Nancy, that was brilliant. So we think of it like a linear like our spiritual life is bringing us higher and higher. And this sine wave is like on this line that's bringing us higher and higher. You have like a 45-degree line and then there's a sine wave on top of the line. And the sine wave on top of the line will get smaller and smaller as overall we're becoming more and more joyful and fulfilled and connected. Yeah, that's a better picture, a more complete picture. Thank you, Nancy. Oh, that was fun. Okay, anyone else before we continue on? Okay, let's move to 4 and 5. Whenever you're ready, Stella.
Intelligence, knowledge, freedom from doubt and delusion, forgiveness, truthfulness, control of the senses, control of the mind, happiness and distress, birth, death, fear, fearlessness, nonviolence, equanimity, satisfaction, austerity, charity, fame, and infamy. All these various qualities of living beings are created by me alone.
Beautiful. Thank you. So Krishna's making a sweeping statement here. He's saying that everything that shapes our inner life, our clarity, our confusion, our strength, our fear, even what we call good and bad, all these things, they all exist within his arrangement. They all exist within his arrangement. So to understand what that really means, let's just slow this down and look at each of these qualities one by one. Okay, so first there's knowledge and intelligence. And they're not the same thing. Knowledge and intelligence are not the same thing. Knowledge is understanding what things are. Okay, so we understand this is matter. This is spirit. This is the supreme. We understand. But intelligence is then knowing how to apply that understanding. So intelligence helps us see things in proper perspective. What matters more, what matters less, how to prioritize, harmonize, make wise choices in daily life. So you may be able to go about your day and acknowledge, okay, I'm not the body. The body is matter. I am spirit. My car is matter. This mantra is spirit. We may be able to know, but to be able to to take this knowledge and use it to prioritize and harmonize and discern and accept what's favorable and reject what's not favorable. This is real intelligence. So you can say, you can know, okay, I'm not the body, you may know that, but then intelligence asks, okay, then how should I actually live today to be in harmony with who I actually am? Okay, so Krishna is saying that both of these things, knowledge and intelligence, come from him. This comes from him. And then he mentions freedom from doubt and delusion. And in the purport here, Prabhupada also says something really nice. He says that freedom from delusion, it doesn't come from blind belief. It comes from careful understanding. And he says that. He says nothing should be accepted blindly. But at the same time, we shouldn't just endlessly doubt everything either. We should try to sincerely understand this transcendental philosophy. And as we do, hesitation will slowly clear and will become less bewildered and confused. Because when we come into spiritual life or really anything, we're all wearing these certain conceptual glasses, the conditioning that we're born with. It's really determines how we see and interpret the world around us. If the glasses are tinted, everything looks distorted. If they're cloudy, nothing is clear. So you think of like going into a relationship and you have childhood trauma. You're seeing that relationship through the lens of your glasses of childhood trauma. Okay, this is just the reality of how our mind body machines work. Okay, but when they become transparent by Krishna's grace, we start seeing things as they actually are. Not as we actually are. We start seeing things as they actually are. And this clarity comes from Krishna. This clarity comes from Krishna. And then he says tolerance and forgiveness. This means learning to excuse the mistakes of others. We don't want not becoming overly rigid or harsh or just always offended. So spiritual life, it requires patience with people because we also need patience for ourselves. This is just beautiful when we think that all of these qualities come from Krishna. He's the origin of everything. All of these qualities come from Krishna. Next is and when we're able to take off our glasses of conditioning, we'll be able to imbibe more of these qualities because this is who the soul is at its nature, at its core nature. This is the soul. It's pure. It imbibes all these qualities because it's a part of Krishna. Right? But our conditioning covers them up. Our conditioning makes it real hard to be tolerant and to forgive. And the pure soul, that's Krishna. Tolerance, forgiveness, that's not a problem. That's who we are at our essence. But our conditioning gets in the way. Our over-identification with me, mine, I am, it gets in the way. And therefore it makes it harder for that pure light of the soul to shine through. But at its essence, these are qualities of the soul, and therefore come from Krishna. So next is truthfulness. We want to speak pleasantly. You want to say nice things that people want to hear, but we can't only speak what's pleasant. We have to present facts as they are for the genuine benefit of others. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. But avoiding it isn't always compassion. If someone's stealing and people are warned, they may feel that that's unpleasant, but it's still the truth. So truthfulness means clarity without malice, and we have to have both. You can't. Sometimes we'll be kind of like condescending or kind of a jerk in the name of truthfulness. No, that's not the call here. The call is to be truthful but compassionate. Truthful but without any ill intent. Right? And actually, the opposite of ill intent. Right? And then Krishna speaks about the control of the senses and control of the mind. Okay, and this doesn't mean denying basic needs. We should eat, we should rest, we need to work. But it's about unnecessary sense indulgence, because if we're getting overly infatuated with these things, resting, working, eating, it's gonna distract us from the real purpose of life, and from the real purpose of life, and which is to reconnect with God. That's like the destination in our GPS. And if we get too distracted along the way with some of these things that are necessities to maintain this body mind vehicle, then we're not going to reach our destination. They're just going to distract us. So we have to understand the rightful place of even these things. And in that, we have control of the senses and control of the mind. We're not getting overly infatuated with eating or resting or working. We use those things to support our journey, not to distract our journey. Because the mind isn't meant to obsess over earning or status or anxiety about the future. The mind is meant for something higher. It's meant for understanding the purpose of human life and cultivating love for God. And when our thinking power is used this way, it becomes sacred. So don't mistake and think that your thinking power should be obsessed over earning, okay? Or status, or reeling endlessly about the future. Everything should be used in its correct place, in its correct degree. The mind is meant for connection with God. And we in the human species have a rare opportunity for this. No other species has the opportunity that we do for this, because our consciousness has the capacity for this. It's just our choice whether or not we use it, we exercise it, we grow it. And if we're not, then it's just going to stay where it is. And in our next destination may be like a body that's better suited for that type of consciousness. If we're just obsessed over eating, then we'll get a body that helps us do that. Like maybe that of like a pig, that just only thinks about eating, because that's where our consciousness is. But if we use this lifetime to exercise that muscle, to grow our consciousness, then we're in a much better place in this life and our next destination. Okay. Then Krishna says something that can be kind of surprising and alarming. He says, happiness and distress, birth and death, fear and fearlessness, all of these things come from him. So it's easy to accept that happiness comes from Krishna. But then when we say fear or suffering, how does that come from Krishna? I mean, Krishna's not saying that he sends misery. What he's saying is that nothing exists outside of his jurisdiction. That's the bigger picture here. Based on our karma and our choices, certain experiences come. And Krishna sanctions that system in which they unfold. So it's like this: the sun doesn't create shadows, but when someone turns away from the sun, shadows are going to appear. Without the sun, there would be no shadows at all. So in the same way, the dualities of this world are going to exist within Krishna's arrangement. But again, his ultimate desire isn't that we remain stuck in them, but that we rise beyond them by taking shelter of him. So those things are also going to be here. Fear in particular comes from absorption in illusion. When we identify only with the body and we forget our spiritual identity, naturally, like anxiety is going to follow. But if one's situated in Krishna consciousness and knows, I am his servant and my future in with him is with him, then they're not going to be fearful. They have nothing to fear. They know that this fearlessness naturally arises. So we have to understand, because there's a sun, there's going to be a shadow of the sun. But let's not get lost in the shadow. So this is what Krishna's showing us here. And then he speaks about nonviolence. And I really like this definition of nonviolence. Nonviolence isn't only physical. It's not causing psychological suffering or Intellectual confusion is also violence. So systems or movements that don't help people realize their spiritual purpose. Even if they're helping them materially, that can be a form of violence because it's neglecting the soul, which is who we actually are. We can't just do work on the body. We have to really touch the soul. Okay? So Prabhupada says the highest form of nonviolence is helping others awaken spirituality. Anything that furthers people's long-term spiritual happiness is true ahimsa or nonviolence. And then we have just a few left here in this list. Equanimity. Okay, equanimity. This means freedom from extreme attachment and aversion. No, we don't reject the world and we don't cling to it either. Just like we said, whatever helps our Krishna consciousness, we accept it. Whatever hinders it, we let it go. This is a real balance. This vision is equanimity. Nothing is not good or bad relative to how it feels in my body, right? If it's helpful to my journey, to my final destination, I'll accept. If it's not, I don't. This is real equanimity. And then Krishna mentions satisfaction. A spiritualist isn't driven by endless accumulation. They're satisfied with whatever comes by Krishna's grace. Enough is enough. They don't need that thirst necessarily. And then we get to austerity. Austerity means voluntarily accepting some discomfort for spiritual growth. This just comes with discipline. You wake up early. You wake up early, you come to this class. That may have taken a little bit of discipline. That might have been a little uncomfortable getting out of that warm bed. I know it was for me this morning. But we have to do it. We have to do it. And following these disciplines that train the body and the mind is called austerity. So these practices, they strengthen us when they're done in the mood of goodness, not when they're done out of ego or politics or passion. But this is when it's done in the mood of goodness, when it's done in the mode of goodness, when it's done with a genuine desire to connect with God. It's done in the mode of goodness. And in that, it strengthens us and not depletes us. Charity is also mentioned here. Charity. The best charity, Prabhupada says, the best charity is supports Krishna consciousness. Okay, because Krishna is the ultimate good. So sometimes we give charity, we give money to, a person on the street, and that's not a bad thing. But a better thing is helping people reawaken their God consciousness. Helping people reawaken their God consciousness. And then we have fame and infamy. Okay, this is the last of it. This is the last on the list. And I like what Lord Chaitanya says something. He says, real fame is being known as a sincere devotee. Anything else is temporary. So without devotion, so-called fame is actually infamy. I think that's kind of a nice definition of fame. So you can see how all these qualities themselves in the definition that we share are orientated towards God, right? Are dovetailed in God's service, just their definitions. Where it's our tendency to take these things and dovetail them towards our ego, towards us as the center. But when we start to become purified, when we start to direct our desires toward God, God helps us by developing this kind of vision so that we see everything in connection with Him. And this is the essential point here. Everything we see, good or bad, it has its origin in Him. So true knowledge is recognizing that everything flows from Krishna. Okay, and then living in a way that draws us closer to Him. And a devotee will learn to accept what deepens that connection, and they'll learn to release what pulls them away. They'll get so expert in that. And those are the glasses they have. Their glasses are now clear. They're not fogged up by all of their conditioning. No, they're clear. They're seeing everything as it is. And this vision, this seeing life in relationship to God is what brings this steadiness, this clarity and peace, and ultimately the highest fulfillment of the heart. So that's what spiritual life is about. That's what material life is about. That's what it's all about. And that's all that I had for you all today. So we have a little bit of time here for reflections. I would love to hear more from you all.
Can I put in a good word for the Groundhog Day movie?
Yeah, you can. I will just say I haven't liked that movie since I was a little kid. I don't know why. I just found it so disturbing. But I would love to hear your good word for it.
Well, I watch it every February 2nd. The thing of no, as I've grown in Krishna consciousness, it's more and more a Krishna conscious movie because it's like each day that he lives is another lifetime
Mm,
where he starts out really self-centered.
mm,
He goes through all the dark things and um and it's like the material world is keeps granting us these lifetimes in which to learn. And there's
mm,
so many of them. If you really, try to count it really gives a sense of how long he's in that situation. But it's when he starts to turn toward a service attitude that everything starts to change. So he's turning outward instead of inward. And even his love interest, which you could say, well, that's kind of lustful. For some reason this year I saw the Annie McDowell as the Krishna figure because that's what he wants. And at first he tries to get to know her, but only for his own selfish ends. And she keeps slapping him down, which Krishna will just be like, you'll never know me. You'll never know me. Right. And then when he suddenly turns toward service and actually starts to get that satisfaction, that real satisfaction of service, that he starts to understand who she is. And at the end, he doesn't try to take advantage of her or anything. He's just amazed at how beautiful and good she is. And finally, the spell is broken. And he says, let's live here. So here is where you love someone because of who they are, not for your own selfish means. And so, I don't know. I was just like, I was in an ecstasy of like that it was so Krishna conscious this year.
wow. That's amazing. I honestly haven't seen that movie since I was a kid because I was so disturbed by it, but I'm gonna go rewatch it now. I'm
Try
gonna
it
go.
with that view that, because she exemplifies the goodness.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm excited actually to watch it again
and
through
he's
through
the
these
soul.
lenses, through these Stella lenses. Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks, Stella. Anybody else have any reflections? Anything you're taking away from this time together this morning into your week? Any Monday inspirations? Since inspire us all here. What you'll
Um,
be bringing in, Meg? Yeah.
yeah, it's lately, you hear the word distractions, everything's a distraction. And I came to this conclusion before today's class, which I love. It further supports it, I believe. You know, Krishna created everything. So even the distractions, just like what we've talked about. And in today's class, I think you used the word distraction. And so you can point the finger at an object over there. That is a distraction. Well, now we just have to learn that inner work ourselves. So that distraction is for me to grow. Because it's easy to point out, oh, that's just a distraction. What do I need to grow to get through that and over that? So I just hear that word a lot, and then it sparks like, okay, think, what's my lesson?
Wow, wisdom bombs from Meg this morning.
One.
Beautiful. Yeah. We don't even have to see a distraction as bad or good. We see it's coming from Krishna and okay, how can this further my growth? Yeah. Really nice. Thanks, Meg. Anybody else? Nancy, do you have any more wisdom bombs for us?
No, I just dovetailing on what Meg said, when if I'm feeling like I have moments of feeling not great, it's okay.
Hmm.
I can move into this world and say this is a temporary thing. Is this, I can pray to Krishna to help me with acceptance and
Hmm.
then to move into some other light period of light. But it's as opposed to we can beat ourselves up, or I can beat myself up. Why am I feeling this way? This is not right. This is not okay. But all the feelings, all of the emotions are Krishna's doing, and therefore, as Meg said, how do I accept those emotions and then not necessarily deny them, but to say, where's the lesson and how can I move through it in a way that's reasonable. I also thought of the fact that if I'm talking to somebody else and they're in some sort of way, I say this a lot to the people I work with. I said, say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. And in terms of uh, being able to speak a truth without hurting somebody, and to be kind in our words. We have to be very conscious about words matter, and my words come from Krishna too, so I have to be careful that way too. So
Yeah,
thank you for the
say what
class.
you mean
Mean
what
what you
you say,
say, but don't
but
say it
don't
mean.
don't say it mean. I like that.
Yeah.
That's really good. Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful. Any other final reflections from class today?
I think truthfulness too is in, for justice, um, especially with all the untruthfulness going around the
Right.
world today. Is sometimes you can't speak the truth in the, you know, for justice, and
Yeah.
we can't stay silent in the face of it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Really nice. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for coming and sharing your hearts and continuing this journey together, the spiritual journey we're all taking together. Thank you. I'll see you all on Thursday.